You just lost hours at work. Maybe your whole department got the email. You already know what's coming, so you start cutting before anyone forces you to. You cancel the streaming subscriptions. You stop eating out. You start cutting your own hair in the bathroom mirror instead of paying someone else $50 to do it. And yet, 6 weeks from now, you're still going to load your dog into the car, drive across town, and pay a stranger around $70 to wash it, trim it, and clip its nails. You'll do it without really questioning it, and if the economy gets worse before it gets better, you'll probably do it again next month too. That's not a personal quirk. It's one of the most consistent, most predictable patterns in the entire American economy. And once you understand why you do it, you'll understand something most people get completely wrong about what actually survives a downturn. When people picture a recession-proof business, they picture something grim: funeral homes, liquor stores, debt collection. Almost nobody pictures the person clipping a golden retriever's nails in a strip mall. But look at what actually happens to pet spending every time the economy breaks, and the pattern is hard to ignore. In 2008, while the housing market was collapsing and unemployment was climbing toward 10%, Americans spent roughly $43.2 billion on pet care. The following year, the worst of the crisis, the year household budgets everywhere were getting gutted, that number didn't fall. Industry trackers projected it would climb past $45 billion instead. Fast forward to 2020. A pandemic shuts down the global economy overnight. Pet spending in the U.S. is widely reported to have crossed $103 billion for the first time that year, according to data from the American Pet Products Association, the industry's main trade group. By 2023, that figure reaches $147 billion. By 2026, industry estimates put it at roughly $165 billion, still growing at a pace of over 4% a year. Notice what's missing from that timeline: a dip, anywhere. Through a housing crash, a pandemic, and years of inflation eating into paychecks, pet spending has never had its 2008-style collapse. It just keeps climbing. So again, why would you, personally, keep paying for this while cutting almost everything else around it? Here's the actual mechanism, and it's simpler than you'd think. You don't experience your own haircut and your dog's grooming appointment as the same category of expense, even though on paper they're both just personal care. Skipping your own haircut feels like a sacrifice you're choosing to make. Skipping your dog's appointment feels like something you're doing to someone else, someone who didn't choose any of this, who's just sitting in the living room with a matting coat, waiting on you. That's not you being irrational with money. It's one of the most reliable patterns in consumer behavior. People protect spending that's tied to guilt and love long after they've already cut the spending tied to their own comfort. You'll deprive yourself before you'll let a dependent go without. And for a lot of people, that dependent isn't just a pet anymore in any meaningful sense. Surveys from APPA and other industry researchers consistently find that somewhere around 7 in 10 millennial and Gen Z pet owners describe their pet as a family member rather than property they happen to own. You don't put your kid's checkup on hold because the market had a bad month. Increasingly, that's exactly how people treat the dog. And here's where it stops being just about feelings. For a large share of dog breeds, grooming isn't a beauty treatment. It's maintenance your dog's body actually needs to keep functioning properly. Take a poodle, a golden doodle, an old English sheepdog. Their coats don't just look messy if you skip a few appointments. They mat. Matted fur pulls on the skin, traps moisture underneath, and turns into a breeding ground for bacterial and fungal infections. Wait long enough, and a vet may have to sedate the dog just to shave the mats off and treat the raw skin underneath. That kind of emergency visit can easily cost more than years of routine grooming combined, which tells you everything about why owners don't let it get that far. Nails that go untrimmed too long can curl inward and grow directly into the paw pad. Ears that don't get cleaned regularly develop infections that keep coming back. This is exactly why vets classify grooming as preventative care. The same bucket as vaccines or flea treatment, not the same bucket as a spa day. So when you sit down to figure out what's getting cut from your budget this month, grooming doesn't land next to your streaming subscriptions. It lands next to the vet bill. And you already know, somewhere in the back of your mind, that skipping a bill like that now usually just means a bigger, scarier one later. Industry surveys back this up. In one recent report, 42% of pet owners said they'd actually increased their grooming spending over the past year, during the exact stretch when inflation was squeezing almost every other line of their budget. So that explains why you personally keep paying. But guilt and love don't build a multi-billion-dollar industry on their own. For that, the business underneath it actually has to work. The math has to make sense for the person holding the clippers, not just the person holding the leash. So does it? Start with what a single visit is worth. Industry pricing data puts the average U.S. dog grooming session at around $73, with full-service grooms on larger or high-maintenance breeds running closer to $95. Most dog owners book that appointment somewhere between 3 and 4 times a year, every 6 to 8 weeks, close to clockwork. Run that math on one dog, 1 year, and you land around $500. Multiply that across tens of millions of dog-owning households, and you start to see why grooming and boarding services, just one slice of that larger $165 billion pet economy, are worth an estimated $14.5 billion a year on their own, and growing faster than a lot of flashier sectors of the economy. Here's what actually separates this from most recurring revenue businesses, though. A subscription is something you sign up for once and quietly forget about, which is exactly why it's the first thing people cancel when they finally sit down and review their bank statement. Grooming isn't that. It's an appointment you actively rebook every single time because the evidence that you need it is sitting on your living room floor, shedding on the couch. The business doesn't have to convince you to come back. Your dog's coat does that job for it every 6 weeks, automatically. Here's the part that should actually interest you if you've ever thought about starting a business instead of just paying for one. Compare this to most other recession-proof businesses people talk about: dentistry, plumbing, funeral homes. Those all take years of school, licensing, or capital most people don't have sitting around. Grooming doesn't. Most groomers train through certification programs that run weeks, not years. No medical license required, nothing to inherit, no 6-figure loan to open the doors. What you actually need is a set of clippers, a table, some basic supplies, and increasingly, not even a storefront. Mobile grooming, where someone drives a fully equipped van straight to your driveway, has been one of the fastest-growing corners of the industry over the past few years, and a meaningful share of pet owners now say they've used, or at least considered it, over the traditional shop visit. The appeal is obvious once you think about it from the customer's side. No fighting an anxious dog into a carrier, no waiting room full of barking strangers, no drive across town. The groomer shows up, finishes in your driveway in under 2 hours, and leaves. People will pay extra for that. Mobile appointments often run $15 to $20 more than the identical service inside a shop, and customers pay it without much argument. Low startup cost, high recurring demand, and a built-in premium for convenience. That combination is exactly why you're seeing solo mobile groomers and grooming franchises expanding into suburbs at a pace most other small business categories can't match right now. Look at where the actual profit sits, though, because this is where a lot of service businesses quietly fall apart, and grooming mostly avoids the trap. The biggest costs are labor, a bit of rent if there's a physical shop, and consumables like shampoo and clipper blades. That's it. No expensive inventory rotting on a shelf. No walk-in freezer full of product that spoils if nobody buys it this week, the way a restaurant has to worry about. A skilled groomer working full-time can typically get through 6 to 10 appointments in a single day. Run the math. Even at a conservative $60 to $70 per appointment, one groomer working a normal 5-day week can bring in somewhere between $2,000 and $3,500 in weekly revenue, built almost entirely on their own 2 hands, not on expensive equipment or a big staff. That's part of why the labor market underneath this industry is quietly expanding. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the broader occupational category that includes pet groomers, animal caretakers, employed about 392,000 people as of 2024, with projected growth of roughly 12% by 2034. That's close to double the growth rate projected for the average American job. While a lot of headlines right now are about jobs disappearing to automation, this is one of the rare hands-on trades where demand for skilled workers is climbing instead. Here's the part most videos like this one skip, because it's less exciting. Recession-proof is a bit of a myth, and you shouldn't fully believe it. Even APPA's own 2025 data shows real strain underneath the surface. About half of pet owners reported keeping their spending unchanged. But the share who said they cut back on pet spending altogether nearly doubled year over year, climbing to roughly 22%, up from about 12% the year before. Grooming isn't immune to that. If your own income gets squeezed hard enough for long enough, you stretch 6 weeks into 8. You trade a $95 full groom for a cheaper bath and brush. You buy a $20 pair of clippers online and start doing basic maintenance yourself between visits. Groomers also compete hard with each other, because the same low barrier to entry that makes this business appealing to start also makes it easy for someone else to open a second shop right down the street. In crowded suburbs, that keeps prices and margins under constant pressure. And the groomers who struggle most are usually the ones competing purely on price in an already flooded market. A more honest phrase than recession-proof is recession-resistant. This industry doesn't disappear when the economy breaks. It gets squeezed at the edges instead, while what almost never happens is people cutting it out completely. Because the alternative, sitting in your living room, matted and uncomfortable, is a cost you'll go out of your way to avoid. And this connects to something bigger than one industry. Every new generation of pet owners is treating pets less like property and more like family. And there's no real sign of that reversing. Millennials and Gen Z, who now make up most new pet owners, aren't just matching how their parents spent, they're spending more, especially on things like grooming that used to be considered optional. That's exactly why real money is moving into this space right now. Grooming franchises expanding into strip malls that used to hold nail salons, larger companies acquiring regional chains, mobile grooming startups raising serious funding. Investors don't chase an industry because it's cute. They chase industries with predictable, repeatable revenue that doesn't evaporate the second the economy has a bad quarter. And on paper, this one keeps checking that box. So go back to where you started. You cut your streaming subscriptions. You cut your own haircut. You still haven't cut the dog's appointment. And if you're honest with yourself, you're probably not going to. That's not a flaw in your budgeting. It's the exact reason this industry keeps surviving downturns that take down businesses 10 times its size. The companies that make it through a recession aren't always the biggest ones. They're the ones tied to something people refuse to compromise on: health, love, guilt. Your dog doesn't know the market dropped. It just knows its coat is getting matted, its nails are getting long, and you're the one standing there with the car keys. Multiply that decision across tens of millions of households on repeat every 6 weeks. And that's how a business built on clippers and shampoo quietly became one of the steadiest industries in the country. Which raises a question worth sitting with after this video ends. How many other boring businesses are surviving recessions the exact same way, just because their customers would feel too guilty to cancel?